welcome back to our channel. So this is going to be my labor and delivery story with Jackson. If you guys haven't seen my labor and delivery with Rowan, I will go ahead and have that linked somewhere on the screen and down below for you guys to go ahead and watch after this video. I'm gonna keep the intro short because I feel like I'm gonna ramble in this video, so let's just go ahead and get started. So to start, I don't think you guys knew this just because I didn't film any pregnancy updates towards the end of my pregnancy with Jackson, but I did get diagnosed with cholestasis again, just like I did with Rowan. So we did have to have an induction or a C-section by 36 to 37 weeks. We decided to go with an induction again just because my doctor felt really hopeful that we could go ahead and attempt a VBAC. I did have a C-section with Rowan, so he was really hopeful that we could attempt a VBAC and then it would be really successful. You know, he specializes in this kind of stuff. So I felt really good with the idea of let's just go ahead and give it a try. I want a good amount of kids. So the more vaginal births that I could have versus C-sections is kind of the most ideal. So that's what we went ahead and did. So we went in on Tuesday morning. I had gotten steroid shots for his lungs since he was technically premature on Sunday and Monday. I got 2 rounds and then I went in for my induction on Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, probably around like 10 a.m. We went ahead and decided to start Pitocin and do a Foley balloon, Foley bulb, whatever the name is. And if you don't know what Pitocin is, essentially it's just synthetic oxytocin, which is what helps stimulate contractions. And then a Foley balloon is, as awful as it sounds, I had this with Rowan and it was way more miserable with Rowan than it was with Jackson. But it's essentially this tube with 2 balloons on the end that goes inside of you, and 1 balloon's on one side of the cervix, other balloons on the other side of the cervix, and they get filled up with, I think they fill it with saline, and it causes like pressure between your cervix to hopefully get it to open up. Because I went in and I was a very slight 1 centimeter, I believe, 1 centimeter. I want to say I was 1 centimeter. So we were hoping that this combination of things would help get me to ideally like a 4 or so, to help get things going. So we went ahead and did that, and like I said with Rowan, you have to watch his labor and delivery video because that was a whole experience of its own. But with Rowan, the Foley bulb, we had attempted it and it didn't work within the 12 hours. I had told my doctor this and we had kind of discussed that if it doesn't work in 12 hours, we'd go ahead and let it sit in there longer because hopefully eventually it would kind of fall out. Like, he's never had it take really more than 24 hours. So we were thinking let's just go ahead and let it stay in past 12 hours, which I don't think is technically really advised, but we were gonna do it. So go figure, it had to stay in past the 12-hour mark because it was not dilating like we were hoping, and so it hadn't come out yet. It's supposed to kind of fall out on its own once you open up enough. So we went through the night. I believe that night we had gotten my Pitocin up to a 5, which I believe it goes up to like 32 or something. And once we hit around the 5, I started having really bad contractions, which kind of shocked me. I didn't think I was gonna really experience bad contractions this early into the experience, especially only at a 5, but I started having really bad contractions. They offered me an epidural. I denied just because I didn't want to get an epidural until the balloon fell out, just because I don't know how that works. Obviously, you need to get like an actual catheter in order to have an epidural because then you're numb and you can't control your bladder. Like, I just didn't know how all that worked, and I didn't want so much stuff inside of me down there if this balloon hadn't fallen out yet. So I was really hoping to hold out just until this balloon fell out, at least to get any sort of epidural or pain medication. So I was just like, nope, I'm fine, like I'm just gonna breathe through it. So that night was kind of miserable. We woke up Wednesday morning, he checked me, sure enough, hadn't fallen out yet, and we were making no progress. So at this point, John and I were already kind of frustrated. Our induction with Rowan took about 5 days. We weren't planning on holding out 5 days. We had kind of discussed that we'd go in, and if by, we'd go in one morning, let the next day go, and if by that following morning things weren't up and moving, we would just get a C-section because we did have Rowan back at home, and we just did not want to be in a hospital with everything going on right now for that long. We just wanted to be home with both of our kids and have it all over with. So Wednesday we let go. My contractions had gone away. They ended up lowering my Pitocin that morning because Jackson actually started to respond really bad to it. So we dropped it back down to like 4, and then had to drop it back down to 3. And I think we had to go all the way back down to 2. And then throughout the day of Wednesday, we started going up and up and up again. And I believe by that evening, still hadn't lost my balloon, it was still in, but by that evening, late that evening, we had gotten up to like a 17, and my contractions were bad but not insane like they were back at the 5. And again, the balloon was still in, so I was getting a little frustrated. Jump to Thursday morning. The balloon's still in, so we decide, screw this, let's go ahead, take it out. I'm like, I was done at this point just because I really wanted to be home with Rowan. I had such mom guilt leaving him to be in the hospital. I was not pleased. So we told him like, nah. He did offer, which I did appreciate, to break my water. I had finally gotten to like a 2 centimeter. That's like where we were halted. He did offer to take the balloon out, break my water, and see if that'll get things going. But I just didn't feel comfortable with it. Part of me is like, oh, I wish I had tried it. But the other part of me is like, no, I really don't. Just because he did react not the greatest to the Pitocin. There was multiple times where we did have to lower it and then brought it back up and then lower it again and bring it back up. And I just felt like if we broke the water and I was only 2 centimeters, it wouldn't be comfortable for me. He probably wouldn't feel comfortable himself. Obviously, once you break the water, things really do have to get going. Otherwise, it's not safe because obviously you're losing the water that they are living in. So I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I just was kind of at the point where, nope, I want the C-section now, because also at this point I had not eaten since Monday night. Was the last time I ate. So all Tuesday I did not eat, all Wednesday I did not eat, and now it's Thursday morning. I'm hangry and I'm having contractions and I just want to get this baby out of me. So it's like, no, like seriously, let's just have the C-section. He was like, I super understand, let's go. And that's why I chose him as my doctor, because he was really understanding of my situation. Previous experience with Rowan and that whole induction process, he was very understanding and was like, you know what, whenever you call it, we'll go. Like, you tell me when you want the C-section and that's fine. So we decided to go ahead and schedule the C-section. Unfortunately, because I I think I drank cranberry juice, they wouldn't let me get my C-section. This conversation happened at like 8 a.m. They wouldn't let me get my C-section until 5:30 was when we were scheduled for my C-section. So that sucked because I had cranberry juice. So they went ahead, had me scheduled for 5:30. We kind of just hung out all day. 5:30 comes around, they come in and they're like, "Hut, just kidding, there's an emergency C-section being needed." So someone else had to get taken in and we were moved now to 7:30. And then 7:30 comes around and finally they start getting me ready. They did give me an epidural instead of a spinal tap, which I think was like the root of all the problems in this C-section. I don't know. My C-section with Rowan was amazing, fabulous, fantastic. 10 out of 10 would do that again. This time around, they gave me an epidural instead of the spinal tap, and I feel like I could just feel more with the epidural. Not too sure. They told me they give the epidural because it's something they can keep in a lot longer. And with repeat C-sections, sometimes they do take longer than your first C-section just because the extra scar tissue and everything. So they gave me an epidural instead. Getting it put in didn't hurt whatsoever though. And so then around 8, they went ahead, wheeled me into the surgery room. They got started, you know, did the whole process. And once they got him out, things were great. I was still fine. They got him out, and then things started to go downhill for me. I started to be, I don't know if it was just from the Pitocin. I don't know if they gave me something. I don't think they did, because I feel like they would have told me. I don't know if they like pushed something through my IV to kind of help my blood pressure or something. I have no clue. But essentially, he was born at 8:13. John went with him. They had to take him right away to the NICU because he did have fluid in his lungs. And right around probably 8:20, I want to say, I started to get really dizzy and just kind of woozy and couldn't really stay awake. I felt really weak. Like I said, I don't know if they pushed something through my IV or if it was just from the Pitocin and having the contractions for the last few days. Prior to this, I did have prodromal labor for 4 weeks. It started at 32 weeks. So yeah, for 4 weeks, I was having pretty much constant painful contractions that were doing nothing to my cervix, clearly. So I don't know if my body was just like that tired. I don't think it was my blood pressure or anything, because they do have like a little screen next to you where you can see your blood pressure and your oxygen, and my oxygen was fine and my blood pressure was fine. So I don't really know what happened. I think it was part of the epidural, just because I could feel more. So I think like maybe I was just kind of going into shock kind of thing. Essentially what happened was I like zonked. I don't know if the doctors noticed, but I like passed out on the table, had my eyes shut, was gone. Don't remember anything until suddenly we were leaving the surgery room, and it was like 9 p.m. So I had been in there after my child was born for like 40 minutes. And I remember coming out and John just being like, wow, you guys took a really long time in there. Like, was everything okay? And I was like, I don't know, I was asleep. Like, you tell me. And the doctors never said that anything went wrong. So I don't know. I think I was okay. I honestly think that my body was just so tired from everything. And then I definitely was uncomfortable during my C-section when they were taking him out. And there was one point where I was like really uncomfortable and like, don't worry, that's just them putting your uterus back in. So I think I was just feeling more than ideal, and my body kind of was like, whoa. And so I did definitely like pass out, but it's fine. I'm fine. I was completely fine. Like I said, my oxygen was fine and my blood pressure was fine, and they just, you know, sewed me up and we were good. Unfortunately, the little bit after, I guess, and this isn't really part of my labor and delivery, but we'll consider it. They, like I said, they took Jackson right after I had him. So I had him, they brought him over to me for like 2 seconds after they cleared his lungs out a bit, just to show me him, and I couldn't do any skin to skin. They had to take him right down to the, not the NICU, but to the nursery to potentially have to get CPAP. They didn't really tell us much. They were kind of like, hey, your kid might need CPAP, like we'll keep you updated. And we're like, cool. So that was like, let's just say 8 p.m. And then it was like 3 a.m. and he still hadn't come upstairs to our recovery room. So at this point I was like calling down to the nursery, breaking out on them, being like, hey, like bring me my baby, like is he good, like are we good? And they're like, yeah, he's fine. Like, and I was like, okay, great, bring him to me. So I was kind of like a crazy mom at 3 a.m. but I did not like the fact that they took him right away, and I didn't get to do skin to skin. I didn't get to nurse him right away. Like I was very stressed. I was like, oh my god, he's probably so hungry. I hope they're not giving him formula without our permission. Not that I'm against formula, my firstborn was on formula, but I was just saying, like, they didn't ask permission. Like I much rather nurse him than them give him formula, and just all this stuff. I was like, I need my baby, like just bring him to me. So fortunately they did bring him around 3 a.m. That was great, it was good. And yeah, and now we have him home with us. But it was definitely different than our experience with Rowan, but the same in the sense that failed inductions, great. But the C-section experience was definitely weird. I wouldn't say it was like an awful C-section experience. Like I definitely know people who have had worse, and like I would do it again still. Obviously I'm gonna have to do it again. We aren't doing any more inductions, but it just was definitely way more uncomfortable than Rowan's was. Rowan's was amazing. If my next C-section could be like Rowan's, totally would do it again. I genuinely think the difference was the spinal tap versus the epidural. I feel like I felt nothing with the spinal tap, and the epidural just made me feel like not the greatest. So if anyone's had a C-section and they've had like the 2 different ones and they did feel different, like let me know. Like, is that just me? Does that really have anything to do with it? Am I just a wackadoo who doesn't know what they're talking about? Please let me know. Anyways guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I will see you guys next time.